Hi, this is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
It's a bird. It's a plane.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. This is Mark Waid, writer of Superman Birthright, and you're listening to The Krypton Report,
the All Things Kryptonian podcast, including Superman and Supergirl.
We discuss games, movies, cartoons, TV shows, and comics.
Find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Hello, everybody. This episode is a special episode. It is the audio to a panel that I was part of on a recent Superfriend celebration. It was a virtual con, and it was awesome. Some really rad people that were a part of this. We were discussing all kinds of stuff. So I want you guys just sit back and enjoy and check out the panel. Will be on YouTube here soon, so look at our Facebook for the links when they go up, and you'll be able to enjoy the multiple panels. But I hope you enjoyed this one. Look for the Super Friends on Facebook, and I shared the links on Krypton Report. So just check out our Facebook and you'll see the information there, all right? So enjoy the panel.
January 16th, 1939. Superman debuted as a newspaper strip.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I'm going to do the share real quick fast. It'll just be a moment, and we'll get started.
Okay. Hi, Tyler.
Hi, I'm Peter Alden.
And I'm Pete Gould.
Join us each week on the Adventures of podcast.
We talk about heroes, both super and otherwise.
Although we focus mainly on superhero, sci-fi, and action shows of the 70s and 80s, we also talk about classic superhero TV shows from the 50s and 60s, as well as movie and radio serials, cartoons, power records, and more.
We also chat with some of your favorite heroes from those groundbreaking TV shows.
Hi, this is Burt Ward, Robin from the TV series Batman.
This is Shannon Farnan, the voice of Wonder Woman on Superfriend.
This is Michael Gray.
This is John Davey from the TV series Shazam.
Hi, this is Kathy Garver, Firestar on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
We even have special visits each and every week from Captain Marvel himself, John Davey.
New episodes drop each Saturday morning at 10 a.m.
You can find us on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or anywhere fine podcasts are heard.
Follow us at the Adventures of Podcast on Facebook and ThemeParkology.com.
Cool.
Yes. And we're back. For folks joining us right now, or if you're on YouTube seeing this later, this is the first panel for the 2021 Winter Virtual Super Friend Celebration. We are going to be discussing today how clothes make the man, specifically the Superman. I'm Dan Johnson. I'm one of the organizers of this event, and I'm going to be turning it over to my friend Brad, who will be moderating this panel.
Hello.
Hey, Brad.
Good morning.
And I was going to ask our panelists today if they'd like to take a moment to introduce themselves to the audience.
Who wants to start?
How about you,
I'll
Jeff?
start. Jeff, you can start. You were here first. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Jeffrey Breslauer. I'm an actor, writer, voice artist, and puppeteer. And I was a guest star on The Adventures of Superboy back in the late 80s and 90s. And if you've ever been to Six Flags across America in the Batman stunt shows, I'm the voice of the Joker.
Nice.
It's awesome.
Yes. So I have certain superhero connections. As a matter of fact, on The Adventures of Superboy, I got to work with Noel Neill and Jack Larson. That's the original Lois Lane, and Jack was Jimmy Olsen in the 50s TV show.
Arguably, probably still maybe the best Jimmy Olsen. But that's debatable.
Mm-hmm. They did a great job. They all did. Phyllis Coates.
Mm-hmm.
Noel Neill. I think Phyllis Coates had the best scream in the whole world.
Oh, yeah.
Her and Sybil Shepherd.
Well, Joel, since you're up, how about yourself, my friend?
Me? Thank you. My name is Joel. I am a paraprofessional in a Department of Education with special needs children and high school age. And I love superheroes, especially Shazam and Isis, and Superman with George Reeves, and that's the whole series type of thing. I love Yvonne Craig's Batgirl, Lindsay Wagner's The Bionic Woman, Linda Carter's Wonder Woman. But Isis is my favorite, most important. So that's who I am. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome.
Tyler, how about yourself? How about you go next?
All right. Hi, I'm Tyler, one of the hosts of the Krypton Report podcast, where we talk about everything Superman related. You can see behind me is my cave of solitude in my Superman apparel.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to be here talking about, don't really need an excuse to talk about Superman, but it's just kind of nice to get to chat with some new people.
Same here.
And James, how about yourself?
Well, I'm James Cole. I am the co-host to the Krypton Report alongside Tyler. My Superman stuff is over there. Can't see it. But, yep. I'm excited to talk with a bunch of people.
Awesome. Tyler, not Tyler, but Brad, you go ahead and get started. I've got a download that I'm going to get real fast that we have for your presentation. So go ahead and get started, and I'll be back in a moment.
Sure.
You should have said back.
I guess we'll first start talking about is just the costumes. The beginning of the costumes, like the very first concept art of Superman from 1937, 38, before Action Comics #1 came out. It's he has the original S shield that's like a police badge kind of. Instead of his traditional boots, they're more like Roman type boots. Like not sandal ones, but like the sandal parts or the hook parts, like on the heels.
Yeah,
lace ups.
Thank you. What I've come to notice is I always thought there was one variant of it, but actually there are two variants of it. There's one where his boots are red, whereas the other variant is blue.
You can see my screen. You might not be able to, but
yeah,
it's kind of reflecting a little bright there.
I think it's a really cool classic look. I know it wasn't really used that often in the comics because later on it got changed some more before he debuted in Action Comics #1. But I think it's always a cool look. And when I actually went to my first Superman celebration in 1938, right, in 2018 when it's the 40th anniversary, they actually had a cosplayer who was cosplaying as that. He did a really cool, good job.
I think it's a very underrated, underappreciated suit.
Exactly.
I liked when they did the cover art for Action 1000, and it was kind of represented in one of those alternative covers. It would be nice to kind of get to see. I mean, the closest we have to anything like that in live action was Ray Middleton at the World's Fair. That was more of the suit that he wore. So like the tangibility of that suit existed, at least one point in time.
And it came out like what, a year or two after the comic came out?
Yeah, the comic was in 30. I think it was it the 1940s World Fair?
I believe so.
39.
Was it 39? Okay. Yeah,
That's
it was. Yeah, I would say it wasn't too long after. So.
And I've got that on the screen right now, actually.
Yeah.
Yep. See,
and there's the lace-ups.
Mm-hmm.
That's the closest we have to like a live action representation of this particular suit.
Mm-hmm. In terms of merchandise, I do know DC directed an action figure of that years ago of that suit, of the original concept art suit. But to my knowledge, he didn't have like the lace-up boots.
No, and then if I remember, they did do one where they had the blue boots, kind of like how some of the panels in Action Comics #1 looked like they weren't colored all the way. So like you looked like he had blue boots in it, and I think they did a figure of that too. But they're very hard to find, and if you do, very expensive.
Oh wow! Guess they looked that over a decade ago, right?
So it's one on my list of things I want to get to add to my ever-glowing collection.
It almost sounds like the a takeoff on the costume that Mayo Khan wore.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when was this? I'm sorry, I missed something before.
This Mayo Khan claimed at one point to be the original body reference.
Oh yeah,
Joe Shuster's Superman drawing. And he wore a costume that was sort of like that. And everything seemed to be a very muted steel blue type color with the steel blue boots. And his was a white shield with a steel blue S on it. So it was almost like black and white type of a thing.
I did want to mention one thing. Now, like I said, this is the World Series, not the World Series. Sorry if I'm still waking up. World Fair.
Hear me now.
Yes. The amazing thing about it is this is only less than 2 years after the character came out, and this is back in the day before mass media. This is before television.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
John, we're joined now by John. John, you want to introduce yourself real fast?
Can anybody hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you. Yes.
Okay, I've been trying to get on since 8 o'clock. How you doing, guys?
Good.
Doing good.
Fine.
Okay, let me see if I've it's like Grandpa and the technology here. Let me see if I okay. I think we're squared away finally at last. There you go.
John, we're glad to have you with us today. My name's
John. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I've been participating in spirit anyway since 8.
We were just talking about Ray Middleton's Superman suit from the World's Fair, which I was just mentioning the fact that this was less than 2 years after the character debuted in the comic. And
1939 is just a year later, really.
Yeah. The thing is,
if he debuted in June 1938, then the World's Fair would have been the following summer.
Yeah. The thing is, before mass media, this is before what we think of nowadays, Twitter, Instagram, the internet, Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And this was such a recognizable suit even back then, even that time period, to be able to be seen by so many kids and recognized instantly, I think speaks to it, to the design, I think.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know. I know very little about either what Mayo Khan did and what Ray Middleton did. I know that Ray Middleton showed up at the 1939 World's Fair, or at least that's what I've always heard. But this is the first time I've heard that he was recognized when he was there, which is remarkable, actually, considering how little Superman material had been issued at that point.
Yeah. I really do think it just speaks to the popularity of the character. I mean, the character, it's so amazing to think back in 1938 you had this feature that's appearing in this one of dozens and dozens of comic books, but Superman just clicks it just clicked in the conscience of children, especially, and just again, it's phenomenal.
So he took off right away.
Yeah.
So that by the end of the first year, he was a widely recognized suit. So when I was a kid, the Ray Middleton appearance was always sort of portrayed as, well, this was National trying to publicize their new character. So I hadn't realized that he was already blown up. That's really cool. Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of funny for a story or a character that was rejected so many times and was like, I don't think anyone's gonna, this isn't really gonna do well. And they're like, fine, we'll take a chance on it. And here we are 80 plus years later talking about this. And I'm sitting in a room full of stuff with this character. And, it's just kind of crazy, think that even after almost less than a year, to a year after its debut, here we are looking at a picture of somebody embodying that character at a time when, now you see people debuting characters in their comics or whatever and already trying to like push a live action version or, a cosplayer out there to represent their character to kind of bring it to life. And here we are, looking at.
Well, one of the things that I find interesting about Superman is that 99% of the characters that people come up with, even good characters, are already in a genre. They're part of an established genre. You come up with a new superhero now, it's part of the superhero genre, right? If you come up with a new detective, it's part of the detective genre. There was no superhero genre when Superman was debuted. I mean, historians look at the influences and precursors that may have contributed to Superman, like the pulps, like Doc Savage, but
John Carter, Tarzan.
Yeah, and people talk about Hercules and Gilgamesh and all this kind of stuff. The reason all the contributing influences on Superman are so diverse is because he really was new. He wasn't just establishing a new character. He was establishing a new genre, establishing a new cultural trope, a new cultural myth. And it's really rare when something really genuinely totally new and different not only shows up but catches on right away.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, just to see the character survive these many years, whereas all those other characters we all mentioned before kind of faded out or aren't as prevalent as they were back then.
Well, you can look at any popular franchise, Batman, Doctor Who, Star Trek, Star Wars, Harry Potter, any franchise that has become part of our cultural mythology, and you can generally identify its precursors easily and immediately. But Superman, in the creation of that character, the idea for that character, the unique sort of visual tropes of the superhero, that stuff was really out of left field and really new. People can say, well, it looks sort of like a circus acrobatic costume. And yeah, sort of, maybe it does a little bit. Or it looks a little like a strongman costume. And yeah, maybe it does a little bit. I mean, you think of strongman costumes and you think of, leopard onesies, shoulder onesies and stuff like that, or tank tops. So, yes, the costume conceivably has things in the culture before it that influenced it, but that's so different from saying, well, Harry Potter is about the is part of the fantasy genre with direct precursors in everything from Tolkien to Wizard of Oz to the ancient myths. Batman is close to original, but he's really the first character that was created because of Superman. Right. So he's already part of the genre. Superman was creating the genre. There was nothing like it. There was nothing like Superman before Superman.
I was going to say we had one of our folks watching, Joe Avent, who said that Ray portrayed Superman during the Superman Day at the July 3rd, 1940.
Oh, okay. Oh, 2 years. That would have been, he would have hit big by then.
Still very impressive, though.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, as a frame of reference, this is the Mayo Khan costume.
Ooh.
Yeah, he looked great, didn't he?
I like that.
Mm-hmm. Classic pose.
Looks like
where did Mayo Khan appear? What was his deal?
I have really no idea. I think he was I don't know whether he just said that he was the body reference for Joe Shuster, but both Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster denied having any connection with Mayo Khan. So I really have no idea.
You think maybe he's just like the first cosplayer?
Maybe.
Could it be like, here's a guy, he saw Superman become very popular. He was like, well, I'm physically fit. I'll put on a Superman costume and boost my, Or
maybe
or something.
And maybe one of his friends said, hey, I'm seeing that issue of Superman. You look like that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, well then, yeah. So he could be the very first cosplayer for all we know.
Yeah, I think because I've been a Superman fan probably longer than any of you guys. I've always heard that Mayo Khan was kind of he wasn't bootleg. He wasn't really, he wasn't an employee of National. He wasn't hired to play Superman. He was just kind of a model for Superman, and that's been thoroughly disproved. He was not. So I guess at this point, all I can say is, well, he's the first cosplayer. That's a claim to fame, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I was going to say
we've got thousands of cosplayers now.
Oh yeah,
all kinds of different Superman costumes.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a shout out, Charlie. You don't need to make a shirt of that one.
Of Ray Middleton.
Especially not of Mayo Khan.
Oh no. I did do artwork for the Ray Middleton thing. If you guys may have seen on YouTube, there's footage with all the guys and little girls wearing a white Superman shirt patterned after Middleton's. I don't know if it said Superman because it's so out of focus, but so I started working on it, and I just finished the 1938 from the cover one. I'll grab it here in a second. But I have so much fun with it. And of course, George Reeves and all that stuff. Jeffrey, I know I'm friends with you, but I don't know if I'm friends with anyone else on Facebook. I haven't started clicking off to see. It's like, who am I friends with here and all that? But
we're about to be if we're not. So
yeah. Same here.
Just be keeping your phone. You're like, oh, hey, look, I got a request. I'm like, yep, that's me.
I have my phone here. I'm looking. I said, okay.
Well, I was going to say,
hi guys.
Hey, Kelly. I was going to say, Brad, did we lose Brad?
Oh no, I'm still here.
Dog was barking.
Okay.
Oh, there he is.
I thought we dropped off there for a second. I was going to say, I know we got
sped to fight crime.
I was going to say we got a little off track there, but I was going to turn back over to Brad. Brad, what do we got next? As far as
before we go back to that, I was just going to say with the Ray Middleton costume, I didn't notice this until now. It's the first Superman album that has black in it.
Yeah.
that actually predates the Max Fleischer ones, which I find rather interesting. I'm kind of curious, maybe did that influence them a little bit when they were making the animated shorts, or maybe not?
It did what influence the Fleischers?
Yeah.
What?
Well, of Ray Milton and his Superman, you notice his emblem has some black to it. He's the first Superman S to have black to it.
Well, we actually see the color.
My guess is about black. Comic book art is black and white line.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and the same thing really applies to, you're talking about the black field instead of the yellow field on the emblem?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh. I mean, my guess is that Fleischer just did it for visibility, because if you can have ink and one color, that's less likely to screw up or jitter than if you're trying to put two colors together.
Yeah.
In other words, there's the ink department. In those days in animation, there was an ink department and a paint department, and the ink art would be inked on the front of the cell, and the color would be applied to the back of the cell in what they call reverse painting. And if they were going to be doing red on yellow, paint was applied in a somewhat more hurried fashion, perhaps. So the S would have jittered around a lot when it was animated, because it would have been next to impossible for the paint artists to draw it that precisely in paint. So the black was added as a way to simplify and fortify the S emblem for ease of animation. I think it was just a practical concern of animation, that if it's there in the line drawing, then you don't have two different paint colors mixing or smearing or trying to line up exactly to register properly in the camera. If you just have a black line filled in with a flat color, it's just more practical for an animator.
I'm an animator. I can testify to that. I started out painting animation cells in the early 80s, and we got to animate for IBM a 1938 version of Superman flying into the frame, and we went with the Fleischer colors with the deep blue and all that. And I tell you what, the painting the S and animating the S over and over again to keep it, looking not symmetrical, but keeping its form is. I don't recommend it at 24 frames a second, but it was fun. So anyway, that S was simplified for that reason, I think, at the time too, until they made it into the form that it later took.
Yeah, and it kind of works in the Fleischer cartoons, I think, too, because there's a lot. It's somehow more noir, and those cartoons, as beautifully bright and colorful as they are, also have kind of a noir feeling to them.
All the shadows and all that.
Yeah, a lot of use of shadows, good use of night, good use of the city, really, as a character.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Batman and Gotham City were done by the Fleischer Studios?
Oh man,
that would have been outstanding. Outstanding.
Oh,
well, we had to wait for Bruce Timm in the 90s.
Yeah,
I was going to say that.
But I will say that the black shield with the red S on it, to hearken forward to Brandon Routh in The Crisis on Infinite Earths, describing why he changes to the black, is because hope shines through the darkness. It sort of harkens back to this.
I've always liked the black.
Where where Superman was the first animated superhero, and it sort of indicates the whole, with all of his adventures, hope shines through the darkness against the villains, against the mechanical monsters, against all of that. So
I like that.
Ties in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Well, it's also very important to remember too. This was at the very beginning of World War II, and I think there was a great need for escapism at the time, and I think that's where the larger than life characters like Superman, the superheroes that you were seeing beginning at the golden age of comics, I think it just really kind of fed that sense of we need something to believe in, we need something to inspire us, and I think that kind of ties in what you're saying too, Jeff.
True. If we had a real Superman and a real Wonder Woman, we could have saved millions of people.
Oh yeah,
we hope.
Well, I tell you, here in California, every time I'm driving along the 110 and not the 110, the 101, I pass by the LA County Courthouse, and I say to myself, Superman, where are you? You know, because it's the Daily Planet from the TV show.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
That's awesome.
All right, so then I guess the next custom we can talk about now is the Silver Age, the more traditional look we've got.
When I hear Silver Age, I don't know about you guys, but I always think Kurt Swan.
Oh yeah,
like that's
Kurt Swan.
You know, it's like there might have been somebody else who drew Superman then, but no, it's Kurt Swan. I have a cool Kurt Swan. It's a Kurt Swan. It's not from a comic book. It's about the size of like a little bit bigger than like a piece of paper. And I if I could get to it, I would show you. But my mother-in-law sells and collects antiques, and she found this at one of her trade shows and got it for me. And it's just like, it looks like a pinup, but like it's an original Kurt Swan from a thing. And yeah, it's really cool. It's right here on my wall. It's always like, that's my Silver Age.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I always thought Kurt Swan for me, he is the definitive Superman artist. I mean, they're just. I think Superman. I think Kurt Swan.
Yeah.
Yep.
He had the look, and I understand that Kurt Swan may have patterned his Superman face a little after George Reeves and that kind of rounded jaw like we see in the picture here.
Oh yeah, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can see the correlation there.
Well, I know when Christopher Reeve came along, he started drawing a little bit more like Christopher Reeve too. So
yeah, like John Byrne.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting how what you see on the screen, whether the small or the large screen, will sometimes have an influence on how they're drawn in the comics. Biggest example I could think of is Alfred Pennyworth. When in the first movie serial with Lewis Wilson and Douglas Croft as Batman and Robin. Before that, Alfred was portly and balding. And then when you saw Alfred in the movie serial, he was tall and lean. He had I think he had a little mustache. But after that, he was drawn in the comics that way.
Yeah. Well, think about it too. Also, they'd killed Alfred off in the comics in the '60s, but when they brought the TV series on with Adam West, they insisted on bringing him back in the comic book. So.
Oh yeah.
Which is perfect for one of our panels, which is coming up about as seen on television and in the movies and as heard on radio, possibly.
And even with Wonder Woman 2, when Linda Carter's series came out, they rewrote it the way, they changed the spinning and the look to a more 1942 look or present day.
Yeah. Well, when the Wonder Woman comic came out in the 70s, or the TV series was on in the 70s, I think that somebody had asked, if it's set in World War II, why isn't the comic book set in World War II? Right. So you got a period where they're going back to that period.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was my favorite.
Let's start talking about George Reeves' costume now, since we have it up here.
Mm-hmm. Yes, by the way, the color costume, as you could tell by the S, because the S that George Rose has on his background is the black and white S.
Yes.
Although it's in color.
He was my favorite.
Thank you for calling me George.
He did.
Did I call you George?
You just said George Rose. I'm like, oh, thank you.
Sorry, Charlie.
That's okay.
You call him George, and you call me Betty. What's up with that? Come on. What's up with that, Jeff?
Yeah, with the George Reeve suit, I like it a lot too. The only thing that really bothered me was always how the cape was set up. Like it has that weird space gap between his neck and his back.
The scoop in the cape, that big arc, like a Roman cape.
The relaxed.
I always thought the cape was interesting just because of how thin it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just comes like directly down his back, and so.
Oh, I'm sure he had. I'm sure they tried something else. It was a little bigger. Probably got in his way.
Mm-hmm. And when I was researching photos yesterday, I didn't realize this until last night that the belts are a little bit different. Because like in the picture here, he has like the yellow belt, where in like some of the other ones, his belt buckle would be like silver. Never noticed that until now.
Yeah. And also on the black and white costume, George's belt was kind of a brownish yellow. Less contrast or whatever. It wasn't really bright yellow build. And this is a black and white costume, colorized, so looks like the 1951 listed.
Great costume, great coloring. Like it's.
And let me ask you guys, which you prefer, costume in color or costume in black and white?
In color. Always love.
Color, yeah, but with the black and white S.
There you go.
But I have to admit, I'm a little bit biased because I like the black and white episodes better than the color episodes. So I'm more trying to say the black and white costume just because I like the episodes a little bit better.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. The black and white.
For me, they were always in black and white because we didn't have a color TV.
But if you look at Charlie's background, the S to his right or to our right, that's a black and white S that's colorized.
That was the one on the bumper when it says, we'll be right back after these messages. And it had the yellow border later on. And I just sort of fiddled with it a little bit. But it's a shirt, or it was, I sold out.
I do just want to point out, like, the fact that looking at the symbol, like George, his suit, he did have his own shield. Like, really? It's just, I mean, if you look at the way it's shaped and the way the S is, it's a little bit significant to him. Like, we've talked about this before. Like, every live action Superman, their shield has been a little bit different to correlate with themselves, not including Smallville. He never got his own shield S, but
I don't think we would have had George's.
At first, it was reminiscent.
Kirk Allen's was like the rough hewn original that Western costume had to redraw and sort of like, well, we have this when we have to do a new costume, so they just redraw it.
Yeah,
I think there are about 8 different S's for George on various costumes. So very subtle differences, but that's my fascination is the George's S on the costumes, all the subtle little things. Even his publicity costumes, we're learning, were different than the TV costume.
Really? And we got Kirk Allen here.
You're asking about Kirk, so there you go.
Now, does his S look a little bit different too than George Reeves' S? Because to me, they always look like the same or very similar.
Well, George's was sort of like a jumping off from Kirk Allen's.
Yeah,
but it was cleaned up a lot.
I feel like Kirk Allen is the best looking.
Yeah, I like Kirk Allen Superman too.
I always feel bad.
I like his portrayal. I think George is the best portrayal of Superman, though certainly the one that influenced us the most when I was drawing the book. But just from looks of all the people who've worn the suit, all of them, I think Kirk Allen just physically looks the most like a Schuster drawing.
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, someone once asked me, I think it was in Metropolis, someone once asked me which one I liked better, was Kirk Allen or George Reeves. And I said, the two of them, because they were so close together in time frame, it's almost like trying to decide between Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly. Because Fred Astaire was more balletic in his dancing. Gene Kelly was more athletic in his dancing. And it's the same thing with Kirk Allen's Superman was more balletic. When he would run, he would take these leaps, these little leaps. And George was more athletic, more grounded. There was more of a, I guess, substance and density to George's portrayal. And it turns out, Kirk Allen was a dancer.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, yeah. So there was a bit more of that when he, in the very first episode, he runs across the railroad tracks. And there's a certain balletic stride in his, in his jumping.
Kind of like the Fleischer cartoons when Superman would go from building to building.
Yep.
Sort of a ballet leap, not really flying until.
And I'm thinking there's probably an influence there, but it sort of fit right in to their individual interpretations of the character.
I know by the time they were doing the Kirk Allen serial, Superman was flying, but I think some folks were probably still thinking in terms of him doing just like being able to leap 1/8 of a mile, as opposed to actual flying back in the very early story.
Yeah, I think actually that the Fleischer cartoons are what caused DC to say no, he just flies. I think in the original brief for Superman, he could leap 1/8 of a mile, and nothing less than a bursting shell could penetrate his skin. But when actually animated, it just didn't look as cool, I think. So they decided Superman flew.
When they animated?
When he appeared in 1938, he didn't fly. He didn't have X-ray vision. These are part of creeping powers syndrome.
Yeah.
A lot
Listen
of
to the radio where he started flying.
Yeah. A lot of it was the radio started introducing things like, do you guys know why kryptonite was invented, right?
Bud Collyer wanted a vacation.
Bud Collyer wanted a vacation.
If you think about it, if you're listening to it, it's just so much more exciting to hear the swooshing sound.
It is.
Yeah.
That tornado sound still, when I hear that wind sound effect, the little kid in me gets really excited.
Yeah.
It's powerful. It gives meaning to his flight. Something in the background of that means that he comes with power, as opposed to just the light swishes of the super fast taking off. Now we lose the poetic flying with that George had, and now he has to move so fast. That every flying scene almost is a takeoff, like a speeding bullet takeoff. It's like, but we don't see the run and the jump and the building up that momentum that George had. He had a solid, now I'm going to fly, and he propelled himself.
It's funny about the whole flying thing. My girlfriend and I, we went with friends of ours to a one of those private airports, and we got to see an air show. And you see all of these biplanes and these old time planes in flight doing their stunts and everything like that. And it occurred to me that each of these planes, and they had some jets there too, it was interesting how the flights were indicative of the time period. And it occurred to me that the flights in George's and in Chris's and in Henry's Superman, the takeoffs and the flights were basically indicative of the aerodynamic time. George would run and leap as if there's a runway. Christopher Reeve was more like a jet, and Henry would take off like a rocket.
Oh, that's interesting.
Makes
And
sense.
it never occurred to me until I was watching the old-time planes going by, and then I would be watching the jets go by, and it's like, huh.
Mm-hmm.
So it pretty much solidifies each Superman in that time, in their time period.
Yeah.
Well, the sort of meditative quality of Christopher Reeve pausing in the air in the clouds and being able to hover was sort of like 1970s crystals and new age things.
Yeah.
Now he can pause in midair. He doesn't have to continue flying. He can just, I'm going to sit here and think about this.
Yeah, as opposed to the Woodstock people who only imagined that they were doing that.
Since we mentioned Christopher Reeve, let's talk about the Christopher Reeve costume.
Yeah, and
that has to be my favorite costume. It is the closest to the classic.
Mm-hmm.
I like his costume. I kind of go back and forth like on the cape. If I like a longer cape or a shorter cape,
maybe a little bit longer.
That's kind of what I come down to. Is I wish it was just a little bit longer.
Dragging the ground.
I don't like that. No, that's almost like dragging the American flag on the ground. I know. No. It gets it dirty.
I like a little bit more like mid calf.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Kind of like Dean Kane's was a little bit farther down.
Yeah.
Mid calf right to the ankle just before it got to the ground.
Yeah. That's more of where I am in cape length.
Yeah, billowy can catch in here. It's like that fluttering was fuller in Christopher's cape.
Is that you, Kelly?
Hey, Kelly.
My sound is starting to...
I guess she's stuck in the Phantom Zone.
No.
Yeah. That's more of
What did you do to get stuck in the Phantom Zone?
So what's it?
It's only allowed in garbled audio.
Somebody's gonna have to go get her.
I did want to say one thing. We were talking about the look of the actors.
Spandex a new material when this movie came out. So, yep, that's me. Hi guys. Sorry, I'm trying to go around one.
I can only three people.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Just can't see you.
Hear you.
So many things.
I did want to say just one thing real fast. We were talking about the actors who portray Superman. For me, with Reeve, all the other actors, George, I think had that quality about him, but Reeve especially. You put the costume on. There are other actors who play Superman. Reeve put the costume on. He became Superman. I mean, he just, like I said, he just embodies everything you think of the character having on the comics page and everything. It just looks like he stepped right off the page. And
like when he flashes as Clark and then lifts up himself.
Yeah.
Superman.
Yeah, not just the physical change, but he exuded a confidence about himself. Like you could imagine that his Superman was that good and that caring, that hopeful.
Interestingly enough, the thing about Christopher Reeve, and especially in the first movie, going back to what Joel said about the slouching and the coming back up, from the scene where Clark wants to tell Lois, who's busy getting dressed and ready to go out with him, and he takes off his glasses and he expands to his full height.
Mm-hmm.
there's one other thing that no other Superman took up, and I never understood why. Clark and Superman part their hair on opposite sides.
I never noticed that.
If you look at Christopher Reeve's Clark Kent, his hair is parted on the right. If you look at Superman, his hair is parted on the left.
Different hairdressers.
Magic.
And interestingly enough, it does something to the viewer, and it subtly changes the appearance. That was one of the things that made you believe that it wasn't just the glasses.
See, I've always kind of liked the idea of like Clark kind of like combs his hair down, and it's kind of a bit more shaggy and messy, and then Superman's is more like, you know, slicked and parted and neat.
Well, that's like the Dean Cain version.
So,
but he did
yeah,
both
now that
parts so good.
you say that, Jerry, like I'm sitting there thinking
Or like All-Star Superman.
yes, I totally see the part now. Like I sitting here thinking about it, and yeah,
he played both nerdy
and that was the only thing that disconcerted me about Brandon Routh's Superman. I loved his portrayal. I still do. I love his portrayal. But he parts his hair like Clark Kent.
Too close. Too close. We can see this.
There's one last thing one thing I'd like to say personally about the Christopher Reeve outfit. What I love about it is as somebody who loves the superhero movies and superhero shows, I'm always hearing we've got to change the costume because the costume from the comic books aren't going to work on the screen. And I point to Reeve and I said, it worked. It worked so freaking well. I mean, all you have to do is look at them and it's like, that's all you need is you need the right actor to pull the costume off, and you can go with comic book realistic.
And kudos to Yvonne Blake, the costumer for the first movie, for making the costume work so well. And, you know, his outfit is supposed to be brighter. When you have a dark costume like what Henry Cavill wore in Man of Steel or in Batman versus Superman, the darkness of it dispels the darkness of Batman. Batman is supposed to be the dark one.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the comedy and tragedy masks of superheroes. Superman is the bright character and with the brighter colors, symbol of hope. Batman is the dark knight of Gotham. His character was created by tragedy. And that's the way it should be. They should offset each other. Look at Henry's suit. The colors are muted, and it's a little bit too similar. It's like Superman getting down into the gloominess of Batman, and it takes away the starkness of Batman's darkness.
For a long time at DC, and certainly with the movies at DC, there was, well, perhaps I should say at Warner's, there was a generation of people there that thought that, well, because Batman is successful, everything should be like Batman.
Yeah.
And so, you know, in the first season of The Flash's suit was, you know, Grant Gustin's suit was more maroon than red, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that this has its roots in a sort of a geek shame that really started
with X-Men.
No, actually, I think it started earlier than that. I think the Batman TV show with Adam West was camp, partly because nobody thought that taking it seriously would work. You know, everyone for generations, people that adapted comic books to the screen thought of it, I think, as sort of slumming, you know, and not really. So they couldn't take it. They couldn't take it seriously. They couldn't even take it at face value. They had to kind of like try and let people know that they're actually cooler than, they're more sophisticated than this kid stuff. And they often, like if you look at old interviews with Kenneth Johnson, for instance, is that the guy who was the showrunner for the Hulk?
Yeah, Ken Johnson for
all of his
and the $6 million man.
All of his interviews, he seems like he's bending over backwards to let people know that he's actually a serious filmmaker, and he's trying to bring sophistication to this kid stuff without really understanding the kid stuff, And I think, and I think that attitude, that the comics themselves aren't good enough, that the intrinsic charm of the franchise that has become world famous somehow isn't good enough for them, and it's got to be something different for the movies because we know better in the movies. And I think when you combine that with the fact that the Batman franchise was the only reliable, was for 2 generations, the only reliably successful film franchise that Warner's had from its superheroes. It was sort of natural for people who don't understand comics to say, well, everything should be like Batman. And I'm personally delighted to see that changing now. Everyone knows, the DC animation teams get it right. Even the WB shows, which are, it's TV for middle school nerds, but it's really good TV for middle school nerds. They're generally speaking in the Green Arrowverse. They're generally speaking writing from a place of respect for the properties, and they're trying, I think, to run right at the silliness, and because the Flash isn't Batman. The Flash is a bright, happy character with some really silly supervillains, and you can't pretend like it. You can't make it the same as Dark Knight Returns, because it's not part of the intrinsic charm of the character. So the best thing you can do, and I love to see DC doing this, is say, okay, well, we have 80 years of very mixed creations. I mean, the big difference between DC and Marvel is that Marvel was essentially created by 2 guys, all in the same universe. Yeah. And DC was created by, scores of different creators all working in their own world. So it's a little bit harder to coordinate them. But what that means is that DC actually has a tremendously wide variety of stories they can tell in different worlds that they can tell. You can tell silly, fun, Silver Agey kind of lighthearted superhero fare. You can
Marvel
tell
family.
Dark, grim and gritty street level superhero fare. You can tell cosmic stories, and I think everything can be as different as Batman is from Plastic Man. And I think by running right at that, I think we can look forward to better movies.
Well, one thing, it seems that DC is not taking advantage of the wide palette of costume colors, for example.
Yeah, I think that's changing, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think that's changing. I agree with you about the Henry Cavill costume. I think that it's conceptually really wrong. For one thing, the red and the blue are so close in value that a black and white photograph just looks like it's monocolor.
Yeah.
There's value
like
difference.
Mayo Khan picture.
Yeah, there's no difference between the blue and the red.
Yeah.
And they're yellow highlight.
Guys, I hate to stop everybody, but I just noticed time. We've actually got another panel coming up in a couple of minutes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
It's no problem at all.
Oh, it's all right.
This panel's just been called. We talk a lot.
We'll have to do volume 2 of this.
Actually, our next panel coming up is the as seen on television, as seen in the movies, and as heard on radio. And actually, a lot of this conversation would be good for that. So I invite you guys to stick around, and let's continue the conversation there. How about that?
Yes, thank you, Brad. Thank you, Brad, everyone.
Great.
Dan, can you quick play our little ad snippet?
I'm getting ready to do that right now. Hang on one second.
Perfect. Yep, because we've got not very many vendors, but we want to give them a shout out since they're gonna be the first vendors are doing 10% of all their sales to our cause of the weekend. So we definitely want to give them their due.
Okay, hang on one second.
Thanks, Dan.
Got it.
Hi, I'm Peter Alton.
And I'm Pete Gould.
Join us each week on the Adventures of podcast.
We talk about heroes, both super and otherwise.
Although we focus mainly on superhero, sci-fi, and action shows of the 70s and 80s, we also talk about classic superhero TV shows from the 50s and 60s, as well as movie and radio serials, cartoons, power records, and more.
We also chat with some favorite heroes from those groundbreaking TV shows.
Hi, this is Burt Ward, Robin from the TV series Batman.
This is Shannon Farnan, the voice of Wonder Woman on Superfriend.
This is Michael Craig.
This is John Davey from the TV series Shazam.
Hi, this is Kathy Garver, Firestar on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
We even have special visits each and every week from Captain Marvel himself, John Davey.
New episodes drop each Saturday morning at 10 a.m.
You can find us on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or anywhere fine podcasts are heard.
Follow us at the Adventures of Podcast on Facebook and themeparkology.com.
Woo!
Sorry, I misspoke.
Hello, congoers. I hope we're all having a blast here at the virtual Super Friends celebration. I am Cody J. Flores, indie published author of the Black Rain series and other stories. It's the start of a new year, and there's no better place to be safe like staying indoors and binge reading. And if you're a fan of cyberpunk, action, conspiracies, and a little bit of humor, look no further than One Short Night, a non-stop thrill ride about the misadventures of a mercenary father picking up odd jobs to make a living in a cyberpunk world. And as this series progresses, so too does the action, the mysteries, and the body count. Their short length offers an easy read with 3 books in the series so far. The third one just being recently released, and that's enough material to let you escape from the real world for a little bit. But this weekend, and this weekend only, from January 15th to January 17th, 2021, I will be donating 10% from every paperback and Kindle copy sold to the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. The Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation is dedicated to curing spinal cord injury by advancing innovative research and improving quality of life for individuals and families impacted by paralysis. That's right, 10% from every paperback or Kindle copy sold from my collection of published works on Amazon.com from January 15th to January 17th, 2021 will be donated to the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. Just go to Amazon.com and type in Cody J. Flores. That is CODY Flores. I hope you're all enjoying the virtual Super Friends celebration, and thank you in advance to anyone that checks out my books and decides to help out for a really great cause.
All right.
Cool.
Like I said, I just wanted to thank all our panelists for our first panel of the day. We didn't screw anything up, which is awesome. I appreciate that. Except for the fact I don't think I ever recorded anything.
I think I did.
I was waiting for Kelly to say something. She didn't do it. So no, we recorded everything. We got everything. I'm going to be stopping right now, though. And then we will be starting up for our second panel of the day, which again is as seen on television and the movies and perhaps heard on radio, which is going to be talking about how different medias have influenced our favorite comic book superheroes. So stay tuned for that. We have Peter Alton, who will be joining us as our moderator.
Peter.
I am your con monkey, Dan Johnson.
You guys stole a lot of my thunder. You talked about half of the stuff I was going to talk about.
Are we supposed to now call you Beppo Johnson? Is that it?
I've been called worse, believe it or not.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky.
Look at